Okay, we're recording. So this is a tutorial by Dan Lowe on setting up for offhand. And so before you started doing this, you did a lot of stretch exercises.
I did. I hit my hips a lot and my lower back. I want to stretch out my support hand a lot too. I see a lot of people, they get a lot of tightness in the forearm, and that gives them a little bit of tremor, a little bit of resistance in that support hand. I really want it to be flexible to what I want to do with the rifle. So I did a lot of stretching. Did a lot of side and upper back stretches as well. A little bit of pectoral stretches too, just to loosen my body up too. I don't need a little bit of muscle tension fighting me at all times. So got my body all primed up. Borrowing your rifle, Dennis, and this thing's pretty sweet. So I've spent the last 5 minutes here just kind of setting it up for myself. I've got the keepers moved up here, give me a little bit of elevation gain underneath my support hand.
I never thought of doing that. Using the keepers to get a little bit more height. Yeah.
Yeah, it's about a little more than an inch on top of that.
Yeah.
And just for not totally rebuilding your sling, that works pretty well. And it just gets that rifle up a little bit higher, because without that, the gun naturally wants to point right into the dirt in what I think is a proper structural position. I've got my hip out over my ankle, kick forward a little bit, and what this does is as I kick my hip out, it brings the rifle up. Doesn't quite get all the way there. So then we add the sling keeper and what I refer to as a kind of a crab claw versus an inverted. Inverted. So I think that I've seen a lot of people shoot like that. I've tried it a little bit. It isn't my favorite position. If I've got this spun around like that, what happens is I can move it out on my thumb, and the rifle wants to tip back into my body a little bit, so it gets rid of having to use a lot of bicep muscle too. See a lot of shooters that kind of got a shotgun stance, and that takes a lot of muscle. These rifles, they're not light, and you might need to be up there for the entire 20 minutes holding that rifle, and if you can do it off of bone support, it's going to be that much better for you. So I've got this right here. I'll show that one more time. Without the keepers, and then I have to do an oblique crunch to bring it up to the target. With the keeper. That's about where I want it, elevation-wise.
So minimal pressure on the spine by doing that too.
Very, very little pressure on the spine too. And I'm just catching a little bit of this corner too. I see a lot of people, they want to dig in and have that nice and tight. And it's not, we can't really say in the shoulder. What's happening is that it's, you have to turn the body around for it to truly be in the shoulder. It's really resting above the apex of the bicep right there, and just catching a little bit right here, so I have good contact on that muscle, but it's not excessive, and it can just sit there. And I've got this arm totally relaxed. I see a lot of people, they'll kick this up, that's how I shoot offhand. And I'm like, no, it uses a lot of muscles in the upper back, and I think it's really a better trick just to totally relax both arms here too. I catch myself, I'm like, oh, I got a little bit of sway, it's more of a fast twitch, and I see that as I need to pay attention when I'm going through my checklist of muscles. I'm like, something's probably a little more than it needs to be. So got that set up.
Is that where sway comes from? That little extra tension?
So sway, there's 4 things that I look for in my coaching. I've got, in order of importance, position, natural point of aim, balance, and execution. See a lot of, coming from an international background, I'm like, okay, I'm paying attention to position a little bit different way, right? I want my body kind of lined up in line with the target. The rifle kind of comes straight across my chest. I don't want to angle this rifle out too much. Then I start feeding weight sideways into my hip, and it has a tendency to compound the problem and rotate the hips out of alignment. And then it takes a lot of muscle to keep that position squared up to the point where you can, hopefully hit the target. So a lot of the sway comes in. You see, one of the things that gets a lot of shooters, they'll take this rifle and they'll just throw it up and they're like, okay, I'm shooting offhand now, yeah. Well, what happens is your body acts as a metronome. I use a rifle to demonstrate this. What happens is you throw this, you've got your head and your rifle, and between those two, you might have close to 30 pounds, depending on how big your nugget is and how heavy your rifle is. So what happens is it starts, anybody that's played musical instruments is familiar with the metronome. So as they throw this rifle onto the body and they slap their head down on it, it starts this sway. And we can, we've felt it. You feel it. You push in with your toes as you rock forward, and you pull in with your calves as you rock back. And we have to, we're doing this back and forth motion, right? And as we go across the target, we're kind of drawing a little bit of an arch doing it too. And so that kicks in a lot of our brain as well. It ups the cognitive load. So now you have sway as well as subconscious rotation with the sway. Because as a pistol shooter, you go here, and if you're swaying back and forth, your arm is rotating ever so slightly too to keep on the target. It's a lot to juggle. And so what I do to combat that, again, got my keepers all set up. I got the tail of that sling, got my hip out, pull forward. What I'm going to do is bring this rifle down nice and easy. And I don't have one of these flip up butler caps, and actually I think I can just turn this on easy. That works. So what I'm going to do is I'm looking over top of the knob, and I'm looking at the target, and I'm using my peripheral vision to get my balance, as well as that feeling in my calves and my toes. So I'm sitting here, I'm like, okay, I'm not seeing a lot of back and forth here. So this looks pretty good. I'll go ahead and get that again. And when I drop like that, I'm looking for about a 5-second drop. And then once I'm down, I'll get another balance check. What happens is, as we drop our head, it comes down, it tilts to the side, and comes forward. And this off center, so you're looking at, my head weighs around 12 pounds or so. And as I bring it down and sideways at the very top of my body, it's enough to set my body kind of forward a little bit. And I have a rifle too. That's why we lean back, is to get that rifle kind of over the chest and over, the center line of the foot. And so what we're doing here is we're getting the balance up top and then a very controlled approach on the gun. I'm also bringing in this trigger finger. I'm like, okay, right there. Because it's a bit of a self-confidence and dominance thing over the trigger. I see a lot of shooters, they'll get up there and like, okay. And then, oh, now I'm on the target, now I touch the trigger. I'm like, well, usually once you hit the target, like, you've stopped breathing. You're in your hold time. And I see a lot of shooters between 6 and 10 seconds. That's the golden couple seconds. Whereas you start getting into the holds that are like 12, 15, 20 seconds, and your air runs out and things, and your vision too, you get an image of the target burned into your eye, and it doesn't work so well. But as we drop in, nice and slow like that, I've already got some weight taken up on the trigger. So once I get down there, get my second balance check, I'll take a little breath in, and then I'm right onto it. I've already got the trigger weighted up, I'm already balanced, I've got my position. I check MPA every 4 or 5 shots. So at that point, I've got my position, I've got my natural point of aim, I've got my balance, and I've got my execution. That's what we refer to as the triggering. So once I get there, there's really not a lot of work to be done. Now, like, today's pretty calm. On a windy day, I'm still rolling through all of that. I know I'm going to get pushed around more. I get a little quicker, a little snappier with my shots, just because I'm going to be moving, and you got to make the best of it. And it's also very, very choosy. If I see myself coming through that target a little too fast, I'm like, okay, I might put that gun 5 times, put that gun down 5 times for every shot, as compared to, like, okay, I might take most of the shots I pick up on a regular day. Versus on a windy day, just a lot of those shots, you gotta be careful. Yeah, I get a little wind from my back right now, and I can feel it. And you can feel it load up on the toes as your body's counteracting that. It's got plenty of time to shoot these shots. We'll just wait it out. Slow down a little bit too, and occasionally get those ones where it's just a nice constant push on your back or on your front. But let's see what else we got. Oh yeah, we'll talk about gear a little bit for a second. This is the Curtoon solid glove right here. It's a great fingerless glove. Now these are about 3 times the cost of a traditional Creedmoor glove, but this hard plastic in here does great for hand support. It's got a pretty tight cuff on it as well. These gloves will last 2 or 3 seasons. The only thing I recommend for people to do is, the stitching's pulling up right here on the hand. The smart thing to do is come in when you pull it out of the box and put a little bit of super glue over top the stitching, and it won't rub out like that, so it'll stay. And you just put a little bit of super glue if it does. It's not a big deal. So that, and then I've got, this is also a Curtoon high power jacket. Don't see a lot of these floating around.
No.
But it's comparable to a lot of the other jackets. It's $500-600, and it's something if you want to rely more on your position than like a stiffer jacket for support. So it allows me to get into position a little bit better. My arms are much better fitting than I see in some jackets as well. Now this thing's got a little bit of miles. I've got 2 years of shooting service rifle on it now, and it's getting a little faded, a little grubby, but it does great. It's a different feel, and I'm curious. I'm going to go to a Creedmoor hardback here this spring, which I think is going to work equally well. It's a different style of shooting.
Different style of shooting.
Yeah, you can lean back in a hardback jacket and be like, oh, this is great. Where this one, like, I'm much more attentive to what my hips are doing, what my shoulders are doing. Not that I'm not saying you can cheat using a hardback jacket, but it's one where it's more reliant on equipment. I think that's the best way to put it. So, other than that, and then Dennis, what kind of sling is this? This is a Doc.
That's a Doc Jones sling.
Doc Jones slings, yeah. Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, nice and thick, big keepers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the other thing I want to talk about too, is that this rifle's set up exactly as I want. I'd like a little bit more weight out front with some of the Guy's rail inserts, but what I get here is I got this stealth ballistics weight, and it's a little rear heavy. See, some of these guns, they don't have a weight up here, and maybe they have the weight up front, and it wants to spin out of the body. So there's no, like in international shooting, you'd have a hook. There's no hook, so I really am counting on this rifle to want to drop back into my body and just sit there. There's one less thing I have to worry about. I can take this hand out, and it doesn't move.
Yeah, I set that one up with half weights on the front.
Oh, okay.
To make it the center of gravity drop aft a little bit. Because it is easier to hold in that. It is.
It's not fighting you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
not trying to tip forward.
Yeah. And I like this keystone mount. Something I'm very particular on. The 3 big ones being the Night Force, the Geisley, and the Keystone. I like my scopes a little bit lower, and I think that the Night Force, the Geisley does a great job of that. This one's not bad though. It's kind of in a midpoint, because as the lower that scope gets, the better my cheek weld is to the rifle.
That was one of the early 1.300 inch height designs.
They're good mounts.
Yeah, it's a 2016, back when we were all like working with it.
Right?
Yeah. Gonna go on all day long. He's got a muzzle brake. Like
I was gonna say, he's got a big old tank brake on that thing.
It balances well. It's not the heaviest AR that I've picked up.
And I think you can, I see a lot of people that would just weight them up, but if it's balanced, I think that's more important than weight.
Yeah,
I wouldn't recommend going out there with like a 10 or 12 pound gun with something in like the 14 to 16 pound range. I think is pretty good. The heavier the gun is, the more it's going to has the potentiality to wear your body down faster in the slings and stuff, and that's where it's on you to make sure that all the pressure's taken up by the sling and bone support, rather than a lot of like shotgun shooter kind of muscling. Especially with that bicep, it'll start to fatigue pretty quickly. You're just counting on that muscle to fire the same way for 20-40 shots. And I was like, it really doesn't feel as well as people think it does. And the stillness that you get out of the bone support position. I mean, once you stop the sway and everything, your body naturally wants to point in the target. It's a different feeling, and it's much easier. All of a sudden, it just sits there, nice little circles in the 10 and X ring. I'm like, oh hey, this is all right. I can work with this. And there's something very calming about knowing, like, I could smash this trigger, and it's still probably gonna be a 10. I see a lot of. I was working with an athlete a year and a half ago, and I was like, what do you think when you're shooting offhand? He's like, ah! I'm like, oh, great. Great, that's cool. You know, because it's just all this motion and chaos and anarchy, and it's very stressful trying to create a 200. Yeah. So we got some ammo.
I do. One last thing. So when you initially set up, you set your chair up first, and then you got behind the chair.
Oh yes, good point. Thank you. So what I'm doing is out here at Burbank, there's a fair horizontal spread between the 200 out to the 600. It's probably a good 30 degrees.
Yeah,
from
30,
right to
35
left
degrees.
Here. And getting up to the firing line, I'm like, okay, we've got this, little set of boards right here, and that's like, okay, this is my firing line. I gotta orientate to that, and then I look at my target, and it's way off to the right of that. I'm like, oh, okay. And it's something just to kind of keep my brain focused in the right direction downrange. What I've done is just set up this folding chair where the front edge of the chair is pointed in line with my target. So that's a little reminder. It's like, okay, so I'm not worried about that line because it's going to push me off to the left. I'm thinking this line, and it kind of guides my body. It's a peripheral guide right into the target. It helps a lot too. Well, that's the other thing, talking about little pre-preps and stuff like that, because there's so much that goes into it, and I run a lot of this stuff kind of automatically. But my feet position, I've got my left foot, as I'm a right-handed shooter, my left foot pretty parallel to this line, and it's line with the chair, not the wooden line here. So I've got this pretty parallel. I'm a little dug in the gravel here. What I don't want is to have this foot rotated out. What that does is it has a tendency to open the hips up. The hips spin open, and it'll remove the support from that remove the foundation from the support arm, which that's my left arm here, being a right-handed shooter, and then it results in a lot of bicep and upper body muscle being used. So I've got this kicked in a little bit too, maybe even a little bit more. And what that'll do is you've got a ball joint in the hip, and it's preloading that inside because it kind of has a limit. It hits up on that, and I feel all the tendons and muscles start to tighten up here. It gives me a better support point for my elbow. And then on this side, I've got it kicked back a little bit too. I'm going to get my big balance adjustment here. And I'm looking to see, like, okay, I'm bringing this in a little bit. I want to fall back a little bit more. If I open it up, I have a tendency to fall more forward. So I kind of start right around 35 degrees. Very rarely will I open it to that point. Yeah, right about there, good 35 degree. Imagine a line coming out from that toe, and it works pretty well. So I've got that set up. It does feel kind of weird with this line kind of coming off of the angle from my body, but yeah, I know, okay, as long as I stay true to the chair, I'm good. I'll lock both knees. I'm a very big proponent of that.
All right.
If we unlock that car, I don't think it'll go off. It shouldn't. Yeah.
It auto locks.
Oh, okay. Dennis, what kind of can is that?
Huh?
384 caliber?
No, 384 count, 30 caliber M1.
Oh, okay. Ah.
Yeah, it's an old M1 can.
I see now, says the blind man. Please take some. There you go. Oh, they're so pretty.
77 smackers.
You're a scholar and a gentleman, thank you.
You know, once you get used to the first time you start using the Brown Box Mark 262, you just never want to go back to anything else.
It works so good.
All right, let me put my ears on.
That's a Black Hills product, if I'm not mistaken.
Huh?
That's a Black Hills product, if I'm not mistaken. A268.
Yeah, I think it is.
Okay. So that's the other thing too. If you're a right-handed shooter and you're not using a bad lever or what's this one, Dennis?
That's a Force 5.
Force 5, yeah. Bad lever Force 5. I highly recommend getting them. I think the Force 5 is in the $30 or $40 range. The bad lever is in the high 20s. It's the best $30-$40 you'll ever spend as a high power shooter.
Here, let me get a close up of that.
I'm pushing around all the way forward. And I've got all my controls. I got my mag release, bolt release, and my trigger all right there at the touch of the finger. Not as much easier. Oh, messed up my MPA a little bit. Okay. So my balance, or my MPA, excuse me, is this, about 6 feet left and about 3 feet high. So I'm going to rotate around my left heel, just keeping my feet similar in relation to each other. Not exactly the same if I can help it. Just rotating my body around. Into it, shoot a lot of 9s and 8s, and think, oh, that's stupid, and then do the right thing. Call that almost 9 low right.
Yep. Called almost 9, low right. It's an almost 9, low right.
Is that like a 10.0? Or is it, no, I think it's reading a 9, isn't it?
Yeah, it's reading a 9.
Yeah, just out.
Just out. Right on call.
All right. That's the thing too. I think, especially in the service rifle game, you got to work with the coach so much. It really is great for the coach to have a accurate and, more importantly, honest shot call. Because if you call a shot and be like, "Ooh, that was a bad one," that coach needs to know exactly what you shot.
Yeah, bad one isn't enough.
Yeah, like, oh, that's bad. I'm like, okay, I don't care that it's bad. Save your value judgment for after. I need to know where that shot went, so I need to know if I need to click it or not. That's probably a little bit more to the right. I call that at 3 o'clock on the line.
Yeah, it didn't register.
Ah.
Don't know why.
It was that good.
It was that good.
Just kidding, it was that bad. That thing was going out there. Ugh. That's another point too for everybody listening at home. See a lot of shooters, not a lot, I shouldn't say that. I see some that like, yeah, I like to approach the target from the bottom. We're talking about how, getting the balance and getting this hip up to support this rifle and bring the muzzle up to the target. When you're doing this down to up, it's an oblique crunch. You're using the muscles on this side of the body to contract the spine into a C shape. And I'm pretty big on not using muscle to do that. I want to drop down from 12 o'clock. This is a relaxation versus a tension up from the bottom. So, find my bullet.
Plus you got a reticle now.
And you got a reticle now. Life's just easier with the scope. Wait for that wind to die down. Die down or get consistent. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world if it's there.
We don't have flags up, so.
Call that an exit 6, maybe more like exit 3, between a 3 and a 6X.
What the heck? It's not reading on
Okay.
the. on the target.
Stop and sacrifice a chicken.
Yeah. Read the first shot. Now it's not reading anything at all. But that's could just be me. See what the access point says. Come on, you. It's giving me an intermittent. It's giving me an intermittent Wi-Fi signal. I wonder if somebody else turned on a shot marker somewhere else on the range. Because that would be two servers working together.
Can't imagine unless he's got one.
Oh yeah, he may have one. Yeah. Darn.
Take a little break and figure out what's going on.
Yeah, let's take a little break to figure out what's going on.